Recently, a spokesperson for Hamas mentioned support from a mysterious country for attacks on Israel. Some sources speculate this might refer to China. Here's the evidence. In the recent conflict between Israel and Hamas, Israeli medical staff reported finding a pamphlet on a militant's body, detailing the differences between a Chinese-made Type 69 80mm rocket launcher and the Russian RPG-7. The rocket launcher, produced by China in 1969, an enhancement of the Russian RPG-7, has more lethality. It has been extensively manufactured by Norinco, specifically for targeting tanks and helicopters. This rocket launcher uses sheet metal parts and employs single-use stamping technology, significantly reducing production costs. It's estimated that the cost per piece might be between $100 to $200, suggesting a potential for mass transportation to conflict areas. Moreover, due to its simple manufacturing process, it can be easily produced almost anywhere with the right blueprints and machinery. The paragliders used by Hamas militants during their raid on Israel were revealed to be produced in Zhuzhou, a city in China's Henan province. This information suggests possible involvement of the CCP in historical events related to Israel. Meanwhile, the deputy chairman of Hamas's political bureau, a Palestinian student named SFRN who studied at Renmin University and the University of International Business and Economics in China. It is said that he has direct communication with Xi's office. Some social media X users claim that Mohammed Deif, a key commander of Hamas, possibly studied at the Ordnance Engineering College in Shijiazhuang City. His spouse may have been of the Dongxiang ethnicity from Gansu, China. Please note the above information has not yet been verified. Deif's residence in Gaza was recently bombed by Israel and his current status is unknown. The Ordnance Engineering College in Shijiazhuang not only trains students in armaments but also teaches the conversion of common items into potential weapons. For instance, transforming gas cylinders into rocket launchers or combining flour with other components to produce explosives, ensuring these items go undetected by dogs. Students from African countries are invited to China to learn these techniques and tactics. After training, students receive updates on countermeasures against security checks and sanctions. If intelligence indicates that the EU or the UK is training dogs to detect certain precursors, the college responds quickly, offering specific chemical formulas and steps, guiding students on neutralizing them under specific conditions. This, quote, divide and conquer strategy makes tasks fragmented and difficult to trace. Furthermore, the timing of several international incidents has coincided with major sporting events in China in recent years, such as the COVID-19 outbreak following the 2019 National Games, the Ukraine crisis after the 2022 Winter Olympics, and the recent conflict between Israel and Hamas following the Asian Games. This has led to speculation about possible strategies or intentions behind them. Considering China's potential influence and role during these pivotal moments under Xi Jinping's leadership, the possible deeper connections and motivations behind these seemingly unrelated events have become a point of interest. Although no solid evidence supports these speculations, the continuity and similarities have led some observers and analysts to believe it's not just a coincidence. What do you think? Additionally, there is evidence of Russian involvement in Hamas's recent assault on Israel. It's documented that during the attack on Israel on October 7, 2023, a directive within the Hamas organization was given in Russian. Starting from the 12th second, one can distinctly hear the Russian command "Прикрывайте, прикрывайте," which translates to, quote, cover, cover. Additionally, the head of the Ukrainian Defense Intelligence Agency, Budanov, disclosed that weapons taken as trophies from Ukraine were transferred to Hamas by Russians, serving as a primary infantry weapon for attacks on Israel. On September 24th, a Russian spacecraft capable of electronic radio reconnaissance and intercepting satellite signals was transferred to Israel's geostationary orbit, implying Russia's strategic intentions in the region. On October 11th, Israel revealed for the first time that the first batch of Hamas militants who attacked on October 7th were trained by Russia at the Wagner base in Africa. This training included the use of drones, anti-tank rocket launchers, tactical deployment, and upon their return to Gaza, these militants trained other Hamas fighters. Furthermore, Russia provided weapons and equipment for attacks on Israel to Hamas militants through the African Wagner base. Most notably, Southern rescue workers are currently releasing a 14-page document found on a deceased Hamas fighter. Dated October 22nd, these documents contain intelligence and operational details, further confirming the planning and forces behind this attack. Based on reports, in addition to acquiring weapons from Wagner, Hamas also procured weapons from Syria, which primarily originate from Iran, given Iran's military presence in Syria. Tracing further back, a large proportion of Iran's weaponry reportedly comes from China. This supply chain has positioned Iran as a primary representative of China in the Middle East. Due to Syria's geographical proximity to Israel, Syria is also considered an important secondary representative in the region. The recent visit of Syrian President Assad to China has reinforced this notion, especially with his decision to have his 3 children remain in China. It has been reported that direct communication exists between Xi Jinping's office and the office of Iran's Khamenei. The liaison is named Saeed Ihsan Jauhari, who serves as the executive director of the Office of the Secretary General of Iran's Council for the Discernment of the State Exigency. Given the Middle Eastern region's weapons supply chain and the tense relations among various factions, it's clear why airports have become so pivotal. On October 12th, Israel launched airstrikes on 2 major airports in Damascus and Aleppo, Syria. These airports serve not only as civilian travel hubs but also as key logistics centers in the Middle East. Reports suggest that weapons and ammunition from Iran first arrive at these airports before being distributed to organizations like Hezbollah and Hamas. The impact of this airstrike was significant, causing substantial damage to both airports and halting all flights. Notably, a flight scheduled to land at the Damascus airport reportedly carrying Iran's foreign minister had to turn back. There are claims that the aircraft was transporting several tons of anti-tank missiles for the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps and Hezbollah, rather than the Iranian foreign minister. Analysts have pointed out that Israel's targeting of these airports aimed to prevent Iran from shipping arms and ammunition to Gaza via Syria. It is also to warn the Syrian army against launching counterattacks in the Golan Heights and deter the tens of thousands of Iranian-affiliated forces in Syria from engaging in conflict. Any escalation would risk Israel bombing the Golan Heights and cutting off Iran's supply routes to Syria. The situation in Gaza. During Israel Defense Forces' efforts to block external supplies of weapons and ammunition to Hamas, they faced the challenge of over 1,200 underground tunnels between Palestine and Egypt. To address this, Israel has planned to create a massive seawater reservoir along the 12-kilometer border with Egypt in southern Gaza, which would inundate all the tunnels, permanently severing Gaza's access to these tunnels towards Egypt. In peaceful times, Israel provided 50% of Gaza's electricity free of charge. However, due to the actions of Hamas, Israel ceased power supply in accordance with the 4th Geneva Convention, addressing potential threats. Israel's energy minister, Israel Katz, emphasized that there will be no resumption of water and electricity supply unless all hostages are released by Hamas. Currently, the Gaza Strip is under a comprehensive blockade by Israel. Residents lack water, electricity, fuel, and are unable to receive food supplies. Gaza's only power plant ceased operations last Wednesday. Moreover, the U.S. is in talks with Israel, the United Nations, and Egypt about providing assistance to Gaza and helping Palestinians evacuate safely. However, Egypt is reluctant to accept 2 million residents from Gaza, yet unwilling to see their fellow Muslims perish. Their only option seems to be to seal off the border and encourage their citizens to aid independently. China, Russia, Iran, and Syria claim to support Palestine but have not provided significant assistance in practice. Neither Iran nor Syria has accepted Palestinian refugees, and expansive Russia hasn't extended its hand either. It seems these countries might be leveraging civilians for propaganda purposes, prioritizing their political interests over genuine concern for their safety. Latest reports indicate that Israeli ground forces are hesitant to enter Gaza immediately. Instead, they're establishing positions outside and deploying landmines, awaiting Hamas to deplete their food and water reserves. Recently, Israeli artillery was deployed, initiating a heavy barrage over Gaza. The sounds resembled continuous thunder. Israel employed American bunker-busting bombs, which would pierce through concrete before detonating at structural weak points, causing buildings to collapse. Surrounding structures remained unaffected, although not many buildings remained in the end. Local reports on the 13th suggested that the Israeli military advised over 1.1 million Palestinians in the northern parts of Gaza to relocate south of the Wadi Gaza within the next 24 hours. Hamas's top leadership has suffered losses. On the 12th, two members of the Hamas Executive Committee, Zakaria Abu Muammar and Javad Abu Shamala, were killed. One of Hamas's founders, Sheikh Abdel Fattah Dukan, also lost his life in an attack. Another Hamas leader, Yahya Sinwar, was killed. It's reported that his residence had an intricate underground system, 30 meters deep, leading to safe rooms in 7 different locations. Some of these rooms were connected to tunnels leading to Egypt, some even large enough for 2 Humvees to ride side by side. Despite these precautions, Sinwar, his family, and 14 of his guards and attendants were killed. On the 11th, a leading political figure in Hamas, Ayman Yonis, was also targeted in an airstrike at his fortified residence. No one in the house, from family members to guards, survived. An incident that has drawn attention is when the deputy commander of Hamas's naval force, while attempting to establish contact with the core troops and seeking to flee, had his communication intercepted by the Israeli Naval Commando Unit 13. Subsequently, the troops transporting the deputy commander were neutralized. Members of the Unit 13 then donned their uniforms, arrived at the deputy commander's coastal safe house, answered the passcode, and neutralized the guards. About 15 minutes later, when the deputy commander arrived, he was subdued. He and his family were then transported away from the site on a stealth version of the Black Hawk helicopter. US and European stance and actions. To maintain the security of the Mediterranean to the Suez Canal, ensure European nations are not threatened, support the domestic stability of Israel, and facilitate a regime change in Syria, the US has deployed 2 aircraft carriers, the USS Ford and USS Eisenhower, to the Middle East. This move also aims to convey a message to Middle Eastern nations and powers, encouraging Arab countries to maintain peace with Israel while also reminding other nations to stay composed and cautioning relevant forces to exercise restraint. The Ford-class aircraft carrier strike group is equipped with 8 squadrons of attack and support aircraft, along with 5 Aegis-equipped warships. These Aegis warships have robust defensive capabilities, able to intercept medium to long-range missiles from Iran and intercontinental missiles from Russia. The U.S. Army also deployed additional aircraft, such as the F-15 and F-35, to address potential threats from Iran. Eisenhower-class aircraft carrier strike group set out from Norfolk, Virginia in mid-October, heading to the waters of Israel. The UK's Queen Elizabeth aircraft carrier battle group may also be deployed in the Middle East region soon. As a result, the US and UK have 3 aircraft carrier battle groups in the Middle East waters, providing a significant military presence. Additionally, the Greek Navy is on high alert. Its frigate, Psara, has been deployed to the eastern Mediterranean along with NATO's Standing Maritime Group 2, operating alongside the Ford-class aircraft carrier strike group. There are reports indicating that the US, UK, Germany, and France have formed a covert alliance, aiming to oppose any third-party intervention in the conflict between Israel and Gaza. The Pentagon has also dispatched special operations units to Israel and is contemplating how to utilize these forces to rescue hostages taken by Hamas. Currently, NATO's naval forces in the eastern Mediterranean are substantial, including at least 1 aircraft carrier, 7 destroyers, 4 frigates, 1 cruiser, and an unspecified number of submarines, support ships, and aircraft. This military deployment clearly signifies a strong deterrence intention. Beyond the Mediterranean, the US also has deployments in the Persian Gulf, Red Sea, and the Indian Ocean. Given this military posture, Russia's willingness to intervene in this situation may be restrained. On the evening of the 12th, the foreign minister of Iran stated in Lebanon that they intend to open multiple fronts against Israel, implying collaboration with more Arab nations. The foreign minister recently communicated with high-level officials in the United Arab Emirates and Saudi Arabia seeking their support for Palestine, but did not appear to receive a clear response. His next destination is Iraq. Meanwhile, there are signs that both China and Russia are attempting to influence the decisions of certain countries from behind the scenes, particularly the Middle Eastern Affairs Bureau of the CCP's International Liaison Department. In this context, the US has already made corresponding diplomatic and military plans. Secretary of State Blinken arrived in Israel on the 12th and plans to visit Jordan, Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates, Egypt, and Qatar. He will also meet with Mahmoud Abbas, the chairman of the Palestinian Interim Self-Government Authority in Jordan. Notably, Lebanon and Syria, traditionally close to China and Russia, are no longer the focus. US allies Jordan and the United Arab Emirates have maintained a neutral stance in this dispute. Saudi Arabia, Egypt, Yemen, and Iraq have not shown intentions to deploy troops, and even the Fatah has only offered verbal support and consolation. The Gaza Strip appears to be fighting alone, receiving only symbolic verbal backing. Militarily, the US and the UK have strengthened their deployments in the Mediterranean, including carrier strike groups and rescue ships, aiming to ensure no security gaps in the region. They have also prepared for the worst-case scenario, which includes potential military intervention by China and Russia. It's worth noting that, despite tensions in the Middle East, the US has not redeployed troops from other key regions such as the Baltic, Atlantic, or Pacific, suggesting a maintained vigilance in their global strategic layout. Lastly, according to a US congressional report from the 12th, despite the challenges, the US remains confident in the possibility of confronting both China and Russia in a conflict and emerging victorious. On October 13th, according to warnings from US intelligence agencies, North Korea is preparing to launch an attack on South Korea. The report explicitly points out that the main financial and weaponry backer behind North Korea is the same as the one behind Hamas, indirectly alluding